right, cool. So, yeah, talking about recruitment in Total War Three Kingdoms, we seem to have to kind of keep it pretty tight. We're under NDA still, so
yeah, a little bit.
It said we can talk about specific systems, though. So, what'd you think? I was talking to my wife, and she said, you got to talk to somebody that knows more about this than
Exactly. I started talking about it with my wife, and she was like, I'm not listening. I'm not going to listen to this. No offense, and I was like, I get that. So it's really interesting because this actually will be a little bit of insight into the Total War Discord channel. But you and I both read the thread that was kind of going back and forth between recruitment, just the recruitment and replenishment, basically, and people's opinions on it, whether it was too fast or too slow, whether they hate the partial mustering recruitment mechanic or whatever. For me personally, I think that's one of the things that Total War's always needed. My big thing is in Warhammer and in Attila and stuff, you have these doom stacks that either you can build or your enemy can build, and you can build them in like 3 turns.
And even if you beat them, they can come back almost immediately, a turn or 2 later, if you give them the time.
Yeah. So that's my biggest issue. Is in Warhammer it works, sure, fantasy style, whatever. The rulebook's kind of thrown out there with that. But when it comes to historical titles, it's one of the aspects that I loved about Thrones of Britannia. Was mustering troops and not being able to just, build 20 units in 2 turns, because even that, I mean, in the context of China, sure, that could pass. But again, it's all about unit balancing at that point between the AI and the player.
And it's the same thing, and it's almost a faux pas to say that Thrones did it so well, but I also really like the system in Thrones. But in Three Kingdoms, you can have tons of peasant levies, sure, but I mean, you can't expect to have elite troops every turn. I mean, once they go, they take time to train back up again.
Well, exactly.
Yeah, so like I said, really enjoyed it from Thrones of Britannia, and I'm glad they brought a lot of that as far as the recruitment, the mustering system goes. How do you feel about the technology tree? Because everything now is bound to the technology tree, from building research to also acquiring new units is bound to that technology tree. Right.
So my thing with the tech tree, and one thing that I'm quickly learning, is it's a lot different from the event. I think that, well, it might be. I could probably do a comparison on a video about it, but it seemed like there were a lot bigger unlocks, or like bigger rewards under the tech tree than there is now. So for instance, like I focused on this on my Yuan Shao Let's Play, not the one I posted to YouTube, but I'm doing my own one right now. And I'm trying to unlock replenishment buffs because at this point in time, my base replenishment is 8% per turn. And so 12 turns to get a full replenishment is just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
So now that's outside of a city, but inside a city, it's only like +2. So that brings it to 10% inside of a city. And I'm like, come on, that's really low. So I was looking through the tech trees because I thought I saw one. And sure enough, there's one that unlocks, but it's only a 2% replenishment. Yeah, like that's minuscule. A 240 unit was like, that's like what? I can't do the quick math here because I'm an idiot, but that's like 10 people a turn-ish, something like that.
Yeah. Sorry, we Southern boys don't need that math all the time.
We don't care. We just care how long it takes. That's all.
But, well, so I was doing a Gongsun Zan's game and ran into the same issue. I was on the complete other side, 3 provinces away, and someone attacked the opposite side of my nation. So I start making my way across it and assume by the time I get over there, most of my troops will be replenished because I was at half strength. I was at 3/4 strength by the time I got there. I still wasn't fully back up to muster, and I was like, that's really surprising.
So that's the one thing, one of the biggest discussions that was going on today on the Discord channel was mustering versus replenishment. Some people were wanting quicker mustering ability, but they were okay with the slower replenishment rate, whereas me personally, and I think a couple of other people, maybe like Mr. Smart Donkey, he was like, I would honestly, personally, would rather have a higher replenishment rate than a mustering rate, because it goes back to how quickly the AI or you can create a full army. So I would rather have the ability to replenish quicker so I can get back on the road faster than to be like, oh, well, I know I can create a unit in 2 turns, but it's going to take, if I get a Pyrrhic victory, you know, I'm stuck in my city for 3 years. You know, 3 campaign years is a lot of time to be stuck waiting for troops to replenish. I can be okay with mustering, but you get that mustering up, you get your full stack army, and then you got to play carefully because replenishment is too low. And I don't know, it's this weird balance, but me, I'd rather have a quicker replenishment than a quicker muster rate.
Yeah, it's for anyone that's not aware. So one of the reasons CA gives it to us, the people that play this game and make YouTubes about it, is that obviously we're going to make YouTube videos about it, but they also do solicit feedback. And it seems like everybody is having an issue with the way the battles are timing out right there. So it's either your 2 options for speeding it up are either less muster times or faster replenishment. But there's just too much sitting around between fights waiting for the next fight to happen.
Yep.
At the moment. I think that's what everybody's sort of feeling.
So another thing that everyone was feeling, and I wouldn't take this so negatively because I get that there's a lot of creative direction with 3 Kingdoms, and honestly, the creative style is really, really good, and I love, as a designer myself, I love the UI aspects of this game. But
all right, we won't touch on that yet, but keep going.
But one thing that a lot of people have said is that there are a lot of difficulties discerning information in battle and post-battle, dealing directly with armies. And I think it's a really, really valid point because I think, honestly, Warhammer does the absolute best at giving you what your army has, what it can do, the health of it, and its stats. I mean, it displays it beautifully. And while 3 Kingdoms displays it beautifully, it is not pronounced enough. So, like, for instance, with Replenishment, until someone pointed it out on the Discord, I did not know that you had a bottom bar on your units on the campaign map that showed the replenishment. I mean, it's minuscule. It might be. Oh,
that shows the actual strength of the unit, right?
Yeah. So it has that that replenishment bar that's ginormous. That's probably 10 or 12 pixels tall in Warhammer. It might be a pixel or 2 on my screen, and I'm like, oh crap! I didn't even know that was there. And that's a bad thing. It's a bad thing when you can't see immediately what's going on with your army in a game that's so focused on armies like Total War is.
The first note that I sent back was about the UI and readability. It is absolutely gorgeous, and there's a lot of it's a complete redesign and shifting of where things are. But because of that, for me, because I've been playing Total War for forever, I automatically looked to go to certain places on the screen and could not find the button that I thought should be there. And so, like you said, there's so much information sort of on there that it's hard to track in certain ways. And I'm not really sure how to solve that issue, even if it is an issue or if it's just me. I mean, by the same token, though, I don't play Paradox games. I find there be too many menus. So,
as a Paradox player, I can confirm that 100%.
And this Total War game, to me, feels like it's moving towards something closer to a Paradox title with, the way the armies work and then kind of having it be more, menu-based in numbers.
Yeah. And that's a good point, but that's something, to be quite frank, even all the negative stuff that we're pointing out is still going in a good direction because the Total War community, I mean, in the Paradox live stream before Imperator came out, there were 4 major Total War players in there. I mean, like big names. You had Surreal, you had Eric Carthage, and I can't remember a couple of the other guys, but I mean, you're talking about Paradox is doing a good job of getting Total War players to move over, and so it's something we've talked about a while, and 3 Kingdoms is definitely moving towards that, and that's a good thing.
Oh, yeah. Keeping it on topic, because I know we can't stray too far off to this. Recruitment. I have to admit to you, and this is why I wanted to call somebody about, I'm not sure about tying units to the tech tree. That tech tree just has so much on it that it becomes very difficult to find what you're looking for. Like in Thrones, the tech tree was divided in half. You have all your economy-based stuff, you have all your military stuff. So I always knew where to look for what I wanted to build next.
Right. So it's a lot different, the 3 Kingdoms tech tree. But I mean, historically, Total War has always tied unit upgrades, both unit upgrades and unit unlocks, to the tech tree. This one's a little more convoluted, but there's still those pathways, and I think
there's no you have to build a barracks and also do a research. It's exactly tied together now.
Right. And so, for instance, what I noticed on some of the pathways, you have your low militia group, et cetera, but you go and you unlock 2 or 3 tech trees in the agricultural branch, and all of a sudden you have this peasant polearm guy. And I honestly, I think it's really cool. I like tying those two together because they've done it in ways that it makes sense. You go up that blue branch, which is kind of more of your economical tree, and you get these guardsmen, which makes sense. They're like merchant guardsmen, you know. So it's really different. But I also think, you know, I don't have the incentive of I'm trying to get this specific unit, so that's the reason why I'm going up this branch.
Yeah. My wife gave me the analogy earlier today, and it really sort of was like a lightning rod for me. I told her I was having difficulty figuring out where all this stuff was on there. And she said, oh, so it's like Skyrim.
I mean...
And she's technically right. So you have a branch, you have like the blue branch, the red branch, the whatever branches. So for the people that aren't aware, this game really plays with the 5 elements of Chinese mythology.
Yep.
And each one of these, they're then translated into a color, which also correlates to a type of hero. So if you go down the blue branch, you know you're going to run into archers because the strategists are archer based. Same thing with the green is spearmen based, the purple is swords, the red is shot cavalry, and the yellow is melee cavalry. And so you know when you start researching down there that you're going to get buildings from it and also units from it. And that was sort of like a lightning rod moment for me. I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
And that's one thing. So a lot of with Three Kingdoms, a lot of the stuff has changed, and like you said, it revolves so much around what is it? Is it Wu Chan?
It was Wu something. I called it Wu Shi earlier, and that wasn't right.
Yeah, it's something. But again, it's that 5 elements aspect, and I think if there's one core aspect that these people, the Total War community and otherwise people who are coming in, is so much of this game revolves around that. Like everything revolves around it, which is a good. I mean, it makes sense. It's accurate for the setting. It's accurate for especially for the romance mode. But if you can figure out what those 5 branches do, you will. I mean, you're talking economical, militarily, politically. You're going to do a lot better in the game. And so that's like one thing you pull away from this. Go to any of the posters that they posted, all that stuff, and just focus and figure out what each one of those does. If you want to go archer base, which is completely fine, still focus on the blue branch. I mean, that's just going to be your easiest solution, you know.
And it's so funny because I know we should be saying things like strategist, champion, vanguard. I just call it blue, green, red, yellow.
It's easier.
And then, it's so much faster to remember it that way. And I know that makes me sound like such a peon, but it's like, man, it works.
It does work.
Yeah, but like you said, once I figured that out, I'm like, oh, I get it now. And because of that, I mean, but that's not the only place you go to unlock units. Your generals now also, once they reach certain levels, recruit or open up access to certain unique guys.
Correct.
I was playing as Zhong Jiang before I joined in right here. I am struggling with these names. I've been working on it for over a year, and I'm still terrible at it. But she is a green person. That's her thing. She's a champion. And her units that she unlocks for her faction are purple, which are the Sentinels. And she gets buffs to green, but not purple. And I started thinking about it in my Gongsun Zong campaign, and he's a red Vanguard type and gets buffed to shot cavalry. But his special unit is a blue horse archer that are strategists. And I wasn't really sure what was going on with this. I was like, wait a minute, hold on. It kind of threw me off a little right there because they're wanting you to play a certain way, but they're not giving you buffs towards that. And I wonder if you've encountered something similar.
So I haven't really done the research, to be honest, and I haven't played so far that I've leveled up my general to that point. But along with that mythological wheel, you do have complements. It's almost like your primary and secondary colors.
Yes.
And so I'm wondering if that's it. I'm wondering if, green is your primary and your purple's like your secondary, or, red is your primary, blue is your secondary. That's a really interesting point. And I'm wondering what benefits they might get to those specific units.
For her, anyway, it was green and then into red. Okay. So it was sort of surprising to me. I was like, oh, I guess she doesn't get benefits to it, which was sort of odd. yeah.
That's really interesting. I'll have to dig into that a little bit.
So her starting units, and this is another question. This is yet again me just not knowing. I'm hoping somebody else does. So, is there a way of swap units between retinues?
No, not at all. And the reason being, and so this was another point of contention that frustrated a lot of people, because one of the guys, I can't remember who it was, one of his solutions was, well, in previous games, if he had a Pyrrhic victory or he was bringing a certain army home, he could just start up another army at home base once they get there, swap them out and get back on the road. Which, I mean, call it historical or not, I don't
That's the thing. There's examples going both ways. I mean,
Exactly.
I remember someone else on there made the counter argument, which is, oh, well, the units were loyal to the general, and therefore they wouldn't have been as interchangeable like that.
Exactly.
But I mean, like I said, I mean, the examples go both ways.
So with Three Kingdoms, that's what it's all about. It's about retinues and their generals. You recruit a general, and it automatically comes with a retinue, and that's what it's about. If your general gets disloyal enough, they will break away and they will take whatever units are with them. Yeah, it's not something I necessarily agree or don't agree with. It makes sense.
It definitely forces you to pay attention to the characters, because those characters, they're almost mini armies. So you have 3 mini armies that make one big army, and so you have to definitely manage what they are capable of.
Right.
Now.
And one thing that's really cool, and this is a cool strategy that I've actually done in my last campaign, I had my full army, my 3 generals, full retinues or whatever. I got across the map or across my territory, and some Han Empire dudes, a small army, was going towards a port that I just captured. Well, I have no money left. I cannot afford to bring up another general and recruit units that have to muster and get over there. One cool thing, you can break one of those generals off. Easy, I mean, make them their own army, and so that's what I did. I broke off one of my archer units that had a couple of pole arms, and I marched him over to the port, and sure enough, he backed off. So that's what's kind of cool. It wouldn't really make sense in the context with the mechanics that are in place to just be able to willy-nilly swap units out. It forces you to make purposeful decisions on who you recruit within what army.
The only reason I even noticed it is Zhong Jiang's starting unit block had an archer in there, and I recruited a strategist. And I was like, oh, well, I can move that over to my strategist now. And I couldn't. Because, you know, it was just sort of like, ugh, I hate to just, you know, disband a unit like that.
Right. Well, and I mean, it is just a different strategy. And again, I don't know that I agree or disagree with it. I'm okay with it. Simply because
it's a different game. It's a different style of game.
Yeah.
They're definitely trying new systems in here and finding new ways to complicate.
And I mean, we always complain about the same things happening in every single game. And so whether or not this is the right solution, it's a different solution. And it's something we've never encountered before, so it works. Now, one thing I will say is your army stats, or your general stats, sorry, the authority, all those things. What you can do is you can use followers, you can use those accessories or mounts that will buff certain aspects. So say, for some reason, you have a Jin Zhang, however you say her, and you have 4 axemen and you have 2 archers. I think what is the blue thing, the blue characteristic, whatever it is, it buffs archers. Cunning. Yeah, cunning. Yeah. So for instance, that just works really well. For whatever reason, you don't want to disband them, they're too high a rank. You can pump into cunning as Xinjiang, and you can get buffs. You can get ammo buffs, you can get piercing attack buffs. I mean, you're not so limited just because your general is a sentinel. It doesn't mean that you can't buff other troop types within there. Yes, there is that whole synergy aspect of having the same type of unit as your general, but it doesn't mean that those other guys are just weak links and they'll die every time. You can certainly pump into other aspects of their character that will buff them. And I think that's a really, really cool aspect.
And I don't think they've talked about this so much in the main Total War streams yet, but if you've seen either one of our videos on our channels, like if they pull up those stats, once those numbers go up, it's an automatic increase.
Oh, yeah.
So like as your cunning increases, you get X additional ammo, X additional whatever. It's sort of tied to it. It's not like you have to like completely change like a spec or something like that.
No.
There is one button that I don't know if this even makes the cut, but at the bottom of the screen down there next to recruitment, there's a grayed out button that says unlocks at level 10.
Yes.
Have you seen, what does that do?
It renames units.
So you can't rename units until level 10. That's what that does.
what I'm thinking is what I'm. Yeah, I know it's a real random thing, and that is definitely something that I think Indie Pride and I talked about at one point at the event in San Francisco, because I think it was in that build, or someone asked about it. One of those two things. Someone asked at the event, or we found it. I think it's when your general hits rank 10 at that point. But even then, I'm like why? Why is that? Why is that?
I guess the idea is that your people have been with you long enough at that point, you want to give them a certain name.
But I mean, hell, after one of my battles, I'm willing to rename a unit. Like, because I had a battle where my polearms, like, it's one of those 300 like points where I held a point and they just demolished the enemy. They held until my cav could come behind and just wreck the other units in a rout. And so I wanted to name them Spartans. But hey, look, my general is only a rank 4. I got to wait 6 more ranks. By then, I'm going to forget what happened at the Battle of Thermopylae. Like, come on. Most of those guys aren't even going to be there by that time, you know?
It's just an odd thing to have level gated right there.
It is very, very odd. Very odd.
So I'm looking at the wheel right here, and I remembered another point I wanted to bring up with you, which is I'm not sure if you've seen done like a unit comparison, just kind of looking at the stats of folks, but at least when I was glancing through them, the difference between the green tree and the purple tree. So the purple tree is supposed to be like melee infantry. It just seems the green tree is by far and away the most useful tree, and the green units are in general far more useful than all the other units in the game to me.
It depends on your play style. So hold on. Let me turn all this audio off. Because I just pulled up 3 Kingdoms so I could see what you're referencing.
Yeah, so for anyone not aware, so like I said, the blue is going to be your melee infantry, and your green is going to be your spear infantry, but also your halberd infantry. And so you wind up with really strong defense as well as really strong offense in the same tree. So traditionally you would need to do like blue and green, but it just felt like, they put it all in one tree right there. So if you did it right, I mean, you could have an entirely, ground-based army right there pretty easily. Right.
Well, so that's where the whole unit synergy kind of deal comes along, because it's like, yeah, you could build that synergy. You could have nothing, you could have nothing but pole arms. You could have all that stuff, but your green generals are not going to be 100% fantastic.
It's true. They're good against fighting other generals, but that's about it.
Yeah, so it's like you could still
fire and all sorts of stuff. Yeah, good point.
Yeah. So I mean, there's such an emphasis on balance in this game, and for anyone who is into meta, you're gonna have a field day. Like, it's gonna be unreal to you. But yeah, it's all about balancing, and I think that's where it'll come in. Like, yes, you could 100% have a whole bunch of G militia, and you would honestly be pretty well off. But again, so I'm looking at the G militia right now. They're an all-rounder. They have very, very, very decent stats. They're good against mounted troops, obviously, because they're light halberds, but they can't adopt advanced formations. So you're always just going to have this one unit that cannot get buffed by any type of formation, and that's its weakness. So there's like I said, anything else will be good. Your Jian sword guards, which are your sentinels, that's the purple. They'll be able to take formations, and they'll be able to do things with them. And there's just so many. Oh, this is a really awesome unit. Oh, but crap, this is their Achilles heel, and that Achilles heel will decimate them.
You definitely feel the rock paper scissors in this one. If someone posted the elite dragon, so each one of the 5 elements has like a one elite unit you kind of research all the way out to the end. And when you get there, they have very strong attack, but they're are really a great charge, but they're crappy in the actual fight. Things like that. It's like the to the 11th to number expression of that.
Yeah, so like I said, there's always going to be that, like, well, I could just spam these guys. But you do that, and you're going to get bits somewhere else. And it's going to be to the point where I wish custom battles and multiplayer battles worked in this build, because I really want to test it out. And I think a lot of us YouTubers since we won't get the preview build for a little while, we really want to test this out ahead of time, because it's no longer like Warhammer. You could just have your heroes. They had their spells, they had their buffs, and they could certainly buff other units. But now you have essentially 3 small armies all at once. And those, how you build up each of those retinues is going to make a huge difference on the battlefield.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't think you're going to see... You're not going to see a blue general
all green army
with 4 or with 6 units of archers. You're not going to see a red general with 6 units of cav, and then a green general with 6 units of pole arms. You're going to eventually, it might start out that way in the beginning on multiplayer or in custom battles.
I don't know, man. This seems like a game where cheese builds are going to be very hard to do. Like, you can't do 3 red generals and expect to win with all shock cav. I mean, it really does require balanced forces. Like, even in my limited time with it, you know, I played 50 turns of Gungsun Zan, and like, I had to pick up some archers. So, you know, I may be great at cav, but I was like, man, these guys are tearing me apart. Like, I didn't expect it. So I had to really move into it.
Well, and I think that's one of the reasons also that they limited cav to the 60 unit count, because man, it's in past games, you could always just take a cavalry unit and you could just wipe out their entire range, and you can't do that in this game. Your cav comes under 2 units of archers, and they're not going to make it to those archers, not before they rout. And so yeah, the meta in this game is going to be unreal. I don't focus on it because it's too much brain power for me to worry about. But you got guys like Indie Pride or Party Elite. Surreal is even really good at that, and Eric Carthage is quite as well. And so I'm really interested to see their multiplayer battles and how they build things out.
Any of the guys that basically get invited to the Invitational.
Right, exactly. There's a reason they get invited to the Invitational.
They're good.
Italian Spartacus, Turin, all those guys.
Someone was giving me a hard time on my channel, my most recent video. They're like, man, you're really entertaining, but you're really crap at this game. So for my next campaign, I'm just going to say it's a legendary campaign, but you know, no one will know one way or the other. What are they going to say?
Yep. No, so there's just a lot of things that are different about this game. For instance, my first playthrough, I played way too aggressively and I got burned. I did not play politically my first game, and I got burned. So that's another thing, is just...
Jeez. Politics are so integral to this game. Well, yet again, we're going off recruitment.
Yep. Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's still tied together, though. I mean, it really
is. In a sense.
Everything definitely feels like it's fitted together in a way that a lot of Total Wars previously haven't. Like, all the systems are interconnected.
Well, and I think it's also a point to, if we're going to keep on the topic of recruitment, and something that I honestly didn't really pay attention to.
Seasonal recruitment. Before, you talked about mustering previously. I thought about this a second ago. Did you notice there was a seasonal recruitment limit?
I did not. Well, okay, so I did, because there's a tech that buffs that. Yeah, there is a tech that gives you more.
Even with mustering times, there's only so many units you can recruit per season. So like you're still limited to only 3 recruitment. So it's another like kind of thing preventing you from building armies quickly.
Right. Which again, I mean, they're doing a really good job of emphasizing that. A lot of people will see it negatively, without a doubt, because they want those cheese stacks or they want those doom stacks and they want them now so they could go conquer. But again, it's to kind of prevent that, because it's one of my biggest frustrations with previous Total War games.
You can't do the tide in this one. Everyone always gets to that point about turn 20 or 30 where they just wipe over the rest of the map, and it's not really fun. You just auto-resolve after. I did not run into that in this one. Like you said, those armies are still so valuable because they take so long to recruit and so long to replenish that if you go on the back foot, man, you're on the back foot. You're going to lose some territory.
Yep. So one thing that I also wanted to point out, and again, I need to just sit down for like, I don't know, an hour and just not do a thing, but just look over menus, look over buttons, hover over everything on God's green earth, and see what it does. Because someone mentioned that with the vast populations of China, why they can't muster quickly. But population is directly tied, or I should say replenishment within a region, even a city, is directly tied to replenishment. Like at this point, I started my new campaign over. I don't have any bonuses to replenishment, but it does get pretty significant once those guys get way up there in population.
And that's something to point out is, we're talking about the individual region and province level at the beginning. I mean, I was turned 50 and I think I owned 3 regions and there's 250 in the game.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not like this is a massive empire. I mean, I wasn't even the biggest dog of my yard in that place up in the north. So
yeah. It's pretty intense. And it's one of the things also, everyone will want to come in previous Total War games where there is no population mechanic, you could sack and destroy everything and you'd be fine and dandy. I mean, you can just go right along your ways, come in next turn, take over the city, and all you got to do is rebuild. But it's important to note that when you take a city, depending on your action also depends on how much of the population gets demolished.
Survives, yeah. And it makes sure to tell you now, it also knocks it down a tier. You have to have X number of population to go up tiers as well. I mean, you can't...
Yep.
Yeah.
Not correction, correct. So it's like you get this big giant city and your incentive is, whoa, I can make like 7K off of sacking this city, but it destroys 80% of your population. If that's a tough siege and you get a close victory where you lose 70% of your men, you have no replenishment in that city, which means you're relying on a base, maybe 2 to 4% replenishment rate. That's a big deal. Whereas if you had just taken the city, you may only lose 10 to 20%. Your replenishment rate might be 10 or 12% at that point. So it really changes your strategy on taking cities or sacking cities or looting cities. You gotta do that risk reward where it's like, well, I could make X amount of money or I could get X amount of this, but at the cost of future replenishment, because it's going to take a long time to rebuild that population up.
It just feels like a deeper level of strategy in general for this game. Not only that, we're talking about, obviously recruitment, the focus on this one, but on the tech tree. I mean, if I want to get that top, Pearl Dragon Cunning unit up there, I have to, spend a good 30, 40 turns going down that one specific colored tree to get that dragon unit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be nearly impossible. I mean, short of like a 250 turn campaign, I would assume, to get all 5 dragon units. You're never going to have just the perfect end all be all army. It will be specialized.
Yeah, it very much will be. Because, for instance, you have to go up, and that's another thing that I really like is the crossovers that you have to have for that. So like you hover over the Pearl units, the state blast furnaces. You have to go up 2 different branches, which may seem relatively unrelated, but they end up being, and that's what I think is really cool. So for instance, I don't know if I'll showcase this or not, but you have to go up an economic branch that gives you government enterprises, statecraft, and then state monopolies is the combined tech to get before you have state blast furnaces, which unlocks that unit. Well, you also have to go up Register of Land and Population, Civil Service Recommendations, Iron and Salt Agencies. So it's just an interesting 2 different completely different branches. You have a yellow branch and you have a purple branch, but then they combine over there to get you to go up to that final one. So it's a really just interesting series of technologies to be able to get to that one set of recruitment.
Speaking of techs and weaker techs and all that, in the preview build, wasn't there something referring to Rome up on that top economic tree?
There is. It is over. Where is it? I know where it is.
It's still in there, but it felt like it was further up last time. Or more significant,
it's the Silk Road. No, this isn't.
It
seemed like there were a few more things to get to it.
Yeah.
Before you were going there. But yeah, I do think that's pretty cool that they threw that in there. And I think I read somewhere in the preview build or in this one so far that refers to the Lost Legion. I don't recall exactly, but just kind of a... I won't say because it's not even like a spoiler, but it was just something in the description or an event or something that kind of just talked about the Lost Legion, which would be a really, really cool thing to have.
It's such a dorky thing to be excited about, but it really is interesting. For those unaware out there, so there's this story from around, 200 AD, I suppose? It's like, this legion of Roman soldiers sort of disappears out into the ether after the battle of... Is it Battle of Pyrrhus? It's one of those where the Eastern Roman Empire just basically keeps going, and theoretically they wind up somewhere along the Silk Road and kind of establish a base out there.
Yep.
Now, they've never been able to prove it, but
right. So yeah, that story goes is that they were captured by the Persians and they got sent to a very, very remote eastern city as the fortification. And so the rumor is that the Chinese came too far west and they go and fight this garrison basically, and they notice that there is this what we would know as a testudo turtle formation that they've never seen before. And of course, square shields, round helmets, and all that stuff are like, oh, that's Romans. But yeah, it's not super, there's no real concrete evidence, but it is pretty cool. Yeah, so the Sino-Roman embassy is a lot closer than, it's only a second stage up.
Yeah.
They speak of another great empire to rival our own in distant lands. If they speak, we should listen. It's just cool.
Yeah, nice little Easter eggs in there. But yeah, overall, I mean, it's been fun so far. I definitely want to keep playing with it and toying with it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, that's about all I got on my end. It's interesting that you're having a very similar reaction to the recruitment. I think everybody thinks something's off. They just can't quite put their finger on it. And it's funny because, they asked for an official, feedback and all that. And I didn't include any of this in there because it took me like a day and a half to kind of percolate it to kind of come up with something.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, I there's some issues, of course. This is a preview to the preview build.
Yeah.
But I mean, if there's one takeaway is that they I won't say they need to completely revolutionize the battle UI, but they do need to figure out a way to make it more pronounced. Recruitment, I think, is perfectly okay. I'm probably...
It's just a different mindset to how you play the game, actually.
Yeah,
you can't be
and so if you play Thrones, it'll be familiar. If you haven't ever played Thrones because you heard it sucks or you think it sucks, then yeah, this will be a pretty big shock to you. The whole recruitment system in general.
It feels historical, for as much as there's, super powerful guys running around doing crazy things. No, this is definitely a grounded history title. You feel the pain kind of like you did in Attila. Those,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all I've got, man.
All right, bud. Well, thanks for giving me a call.
Hey, good talking to you as well. Have fun out there. And yeah, whenever we get to do some battles or something, I'll play you sometime.
Absolutely. Sounds good to me.